We have often asked the question, why is heritage an important foundation in ESD, particularly Indigenous heritage? Well, colonialism excluded Indigenous heritage from classroom learning, and heritage is a key intergenerational and historical dimension of cultural identity and a foundation for meaningful learning. We have noted how heritage insights can arise in mother tongue, and that intercultural learning is an inside-out and together process of meetings between cultures and a process of story sharing in the handprint care work that we've been doing. The heritage materials and the handprint exemplars are intended as historical seeds for activating local and intergenerational knowledge as a foundation for better situated meaning making in classroom and community settings. And sustainability education is an inclusive learning process that can enable us to work together to uncover and to recover intergenerational story and heritage that, in the words of Gina Nhlope, allows us to touch the past with our memories, to feel the future flying on the wings of imagination. Now, in work with heritage, what we've often found is it's important to have DIY tools, do-it-yourself tools. If the heritage is on the inside coming out, then we can explore Indigenous, climate-smart agriculture as a heritage practice. And what I'm going to do briefly now is to show you the setup that we have been developing with teachers, where we use waste materials like yoga tubs and drip trays. And then we use Netafim drip line that we buy from a local dealer. And then we use piping from fish tanks to look at the 1 meter header pressure for the drip that we need, and convert Coke bottles into simulated water tanks that allow us to do this work. Why this work is so important is because climate-smart heritage practices can be talked about in theory, but when the learners are able to see them and use drip irrigation experiments, they're able to make the connection between heritage and gardening in the present. So the izala, humus, with organic nutrients is really important because it allows us to understand the making of potting soil with humus and organic nutrients to support plant growth. And the way we do that is 1 sand to 2 compost to 2 soil to make our potting soil. And then we've got the ukugalesha, the idea of water in the soil and the wetting front and water retention in the soil allows us to see how we can measure water retention, and we can compare the wetting front rate and the water retention of potting soil and sand. Just as Indigenous people were able to assess that they could capture winter rainfall, and that would provide the water for the plants to germinate in the new season, and the soil would be nice and soft for ploughing. So we set up a plastic bottle tank, like in the photograph and on the slide before, using the Netafim drip line, connect this to yoga tubs with their drip trays, and then we start thinking about also the movement of plants from the forest and the importance of mycorrhizal. And we can set up this drip irrigation as a micro nursery for tree seedlings, where we can take the Indigenous heritage of Ukutata, Utlaba, Noti, and we can actually think of the mycorrhiza and inoculate the roots. So what we're doing in the laboratory is what Indigenous people had mastered in the forest to move plants. We can also set up a micro food garden using the wetting front assessment to avoid overwatering so that the plants have the optimum amount of water. So one's able to sort of learn from the past, take it into the present and learn in the present. Then Emifino, the retaining of wild greens in the beds in the garden. This was done by students in the Eastern Cape, where they used cattle dung to germinate weeds. And instead of saying everything is weeds, they identified the imifino, and they kept the imifino growing with the other plants in their gardens around the maize and around the cabbages. And then, of course, seeds. Very important to save seeds and share seeds for plant diversity. So heritage seeds for species richness is an important heritage that we need to continue. If we are going to have control of seeds at a local level, be able to produce food with seeds that have adapted to local conditions. So here we have a way of connecting, integrating, and growing knowledge out of heritage. And it's a really nice change challenge project for learners to get involved in, because they are proud of their heritage and they can take it into their learning and take it into the practices that they're going to do for sustainability in their local area.